but I wanted to try to put some of you at ease because I hear some stress and some concerns. I've had relatives that don't understand real estate. They had stresses and concerns when things of a different nature came up, and I had to come in and console them. So everybody in this room, look at this as a positive. It may be a negative for some, but people who couldn't sell a house, and now's the time to buy it. I've bought houses on the east side of Cleveland and $500 through bank foreclosures. There are some tremendous deals out there if you can get good realtors to help you. And I think they're going to pay you market value, and I don't think anyone else is going to pay some of you market value for some of these homes. Some of them are run down. So look at this as an overall benefit. I think this is going to be a beautiful project. NFL is loaded, but the NFL is also a business. Well, trust me, this is the NFL. These gentlemen don't work specifically for the NFL, but the NFL is running this ship and guiding this ship. But I think this is going to be a tremendous community asset for all of you. But I said before, unionize, get a powerful voice, because another thing that gray area needs a buffer. That gray area needs a major buffer. And I think that's the first thing you guys get as a collective voice. Get some kind of buffer so you don't have those parking issues that you're so worried about. That's one of your things that you guys have to have a common voice. But work closely with these gentlemen. I'm impressed by both of these gentlemen. I think they'd be easy to work with, and I think for most of you, this is going to be a blessing.
So you say $2. You're not going to community?
Right, this isn't Cleveland, and you're not losing your home.
No.
Please and listen.
So let me show you a little bit what it was. I'm sorry that I wasn't able, or Stu wasn't able to be at your meeting last week, but we sent some of our staff, and we wanted to welcome you here to be a part of this. Here's a couple things. We start everything here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame about our mission. You know, what we're about. Because I do think that 52 years ago, all of you in Canton started something really special. And it's special here. I mean, last week I was with 19 Hall of Famers in Israel. It's special on the other side of the world. It stands for excellence. And our mission is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence every day. The values that we kind of focus on, I don't know if many, what I've found since I've been in Canton, about the last 18 months, is that, you know, there's a lot of people in Canton who haven't been to the Hall of Fame for a long, long time. Even some of them who are real, real close. But we are promoting a lot of stuff, and I'm glad you're here tonight. The values that we focus on are commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. We want to do this in our project. We want to do that in being good neighbors to you. And it's my commitment that we're going to do that. Our vision for the Pro Football Hall of Fame is that it's not just about the past, it's about the future. It's not just about Canton, it's really about the world. And we've been taking that message of Canton out there. And it's not just a great museum for football, it's a message of excellence for everyone everywhere. Last week we had all the rookies in here for the AFC and the NFC in this same room. We talked about the same mission and what we're about. So that takes us to Hall of Fame Village. When I got here, to be quite honest with you, I was looking for a nicer hotel. There have been a lot of new hotels that have been built recently in the area. Stu has one of them up in Akron. But when our two teams play here, they have to stay in Cleveland. When our rookies are here, they stay in Aurora. And there is no really first-class hotel here, so that's all I was looking for. And so it kind of mushroomed, and other people had other ideas, and we looked at what we could do. And our goal here is to try to do something good that would improve our community. And we want to do it in partnership with you. But this is the plan. You've probably seen it. We've developed it. We've talked about the prospect of it for about the last year and a half. It's not a secret. It wasn't intended to keep a secret from you. You'll see I've given speeches all over Stark County about this. If we haven't knocked on your door, I'm sorry, but we've had many of your neighbors call us. And we've talked to every one of them. Some of them have come to my office, so we've talked to them about that in terms of what we're doing. But you need to know that this is a fluid plan. This is something that would take 5 to 10 years to totally build out. And the question was, what components could we get into this thing to make it be economically supportable and what it can do? This shows a little bit of what we want to get started on right away, which is really the stadium and some fields where we could have some youth activity and the plazas that would be in between here to make this a better place than what we would do. This is what we would hope to do in the West End Zone, or it might move someplace else if we don't get the land for the West End Zone. But it shows some of the things we can do, and we think it could be something really special for Canton and what it can be. It would be a place with restaurants, so there would be more restaurants here. It's not meant to replace downtown, but it's meant to complement stuff here. Hopefully people would come here, not just for 3 or 4 hours, but they'd maybe come here for a couple of days. And they'd spend their tax dollars here and what they would do. This is the plot plan, and again, this is real fluid, because we've got to figure out what we can do. And Stu can speak to more of this later on. We own a lot of this property, I believe, right up through here, and a little bit more up in here, and a little bit there. So if this was the plan that we used, we'd have to buy more property. And I want to say a couple things further about this, but these are the meetings that we've had. And this is just one page of this. There's probably 2 other pages of this. We have talked to Chamber of Commerce's, to business groups, to education groups, to people all over. I've probably given myself 200 speeches at least on this. So we're trying to do it as openly as possible, and when we we've done it, we've been as honest as I know how to be in a situation of telling people this is what we want to do, this is what we want to go, this is what it's going to take. And you need to know that this is not the NFL. This is the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization that has entered into a partnership, a letter of intent, with IRG, Stu Lichter as the master developer. Okay? To the degree that we make any money, and he's taking all the risk here, so he needs to make some money.
I think the homeowners are taking all the risk, aren't they?
Yeah, you'll get your shot, okay? Thank you, sir.
I'm not trying to take a shot.
Okay, yeah. When I'm through, I'd love to have you talk, okay? But to the degree that we make any money, it's going to be spent on the Hall of Fame. It's going to be spent on the neighborhood. It's going to be spent on the community. It may be spent on some of the legends that play the game. It's going to be spent on things that are consistent with our mission from that point. And, you know, here's the economic impact that we talked about if this thing was to go full stream. I don't know if it'll go this far. But it would create a lot of tax revenue, a lot of jobs, and a lot of other opportunity for the area. We've been here, and a lot of people have called us. Maybe we haven't knocked on your door. We've worked with DHOF, we've worked with Integra, other companies in the area. And you need to know that a lot of your neighbors have called us. During the last year, we've purchased 15 homes in this neighborhood. Some of which may not even be involved in the project, but we thought it was a good neighbor to do so because they were contacting us. We worked out all kinds of deals with them, but not one person didn't voluntarily sell their home. So we're a potential buyer for something, you know, that's there, but you are in control of your home. Nobody can take your home from you. We're not going to take your home from you. They're not going to take your home from you. You're in control. We want to partner with you if we can do that. And for a lot of people in this market, having a buyer was a pretty good thing. Now, it may not be for you, but if there is something that we can do for you and work for you, this is what we want to do. So that's a brief presentation, and I'll turn it over to Stu in a second to tell you, and then we can kind of take whatever questions you have. But again, you know, let me at least give you my rationale for this. And if we disagree, we're free to disagree with respect to each other. Many of you have spent your whole life here. My wife and I have only been here the last 18 months. But we came here because we care about making a difference. And the community that you know over the last 3 decades has lost Hercules and has lost Hoover, which was next door, Timken Split, and a lot of jobs. So it's gone from 140,000 to about 70,000. And you lost a lot of highly employed people in that group that caused taxes to go down. So there's less money for police and safety, fixing potholes, for education. You've gone from 4 high schools to 3 high schools, from 3 high schools to 2 high schools, from 2 high schools to 1 high school. You know, what we were looking was trying to take something to build that back up again. And how could we take this and do this in a positive way for what I believe Canton stands for? You know, the Hall of Fame and that excellence. And do it in a way that is a very positive community. And my staff told me that somebody last week said, or asked a question in the morning meeting that, hey, I'm retired, what does this do for me? Well, let me share what I think it can do for you, what I hope it will do for you. I hope it'll provide a lot of jobs. And if you're retired, you may not need a job, but maybe your son or daughter do, or maybe your grandchildren do, because a lot of them right now are going to other places to find those jobs. So we're hoping in some respects it can keep families together. Second of all, it's going to have restaurants and it's going to have other things that should increase the value of your property. if you're outside this area or if you want to stay. But it also should increase that tax base so that there's money for public safety, for ambulances, for potholes, for parks, for education, to make this a better community. So I can tell you sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, what we have been trying to do is to make it a better community. And we want to work with you to do that in every way we can. Thank you. Sue.
David's always a tough act to follow. He's probably the best speaker I've come across in my life. So I'm in the unenviable position of following him, and I really just want to second most of what he said. I've been really fortunate to be able to do a number of projects in this area that have had a positive impact on the area and that we're really proud of. And that includes the Hoover project in North Canton and keeping good here in Ohio and Akron. And when I came upon the Hall of Fame and met David and to help develop this vision, we thought it was a game changer for Canton and for the area. I apologize that we haven't directly contacted each of the homeowners before now. The main reason for that is most of the work that's been done to date has been visioning. And until we knew what we would like to do and what our vision was, right, we didn't know who would be in the area, who would be outside the area. We've pretty much completed that vision stage. And that doesn't mean, as David said, it's not flexible, because you folks have every right to be concerned. You've lived in these places your entire life, and they're important to you, and I understand that, But we have no right to take any property from you or any desire to take any property from you. So everything here, it must be emphasized, is entirely voluntary. And knowing that, and knowing that our ideal plan, which is what was shown to you pretty briefly, does involve acquiring a number of houses. Obviously, we have alternative plans if we can't acquire the houses. Frankly, we don't like those plans as much. We don't think those plans have quite the impact on the area as if we're able to accomplish our entire vision. It'll be a small project or a project without the energy, because part of creating the energy, as a developer who's done this all over the country, is to create an environment. And an environment means a pretty tight, intensely developed area. And to the extent that we can't acquire the homes, we will not be able to fully create the vision we want, just to be perfectly honest. But we'll be able to do a lot in other ways. So, any concerns you have, because I heard from the meeting last week that some people did express concerns, you're going to take my house. We can't take your house. We wouldn't take your house. We have no desire to take your house. We have a desire to work with you as partners and to try to make the city better for everybody. So with that, I think that we'll just answer questions as people have them.
Sure, let's raise your hand. I'll bring
The mic around to you.
Yes. This one here, you keep talking about the city of Canton. That's great. This is Plain Township. Canton has never helped us one bit here. Okay? Not saying we don't want to. I don't think anyone here is against progress, in a positive aspect of new jobs and everything else. But this is Plain Township. It's not the city of Canton. I myself will not allow you to annex my house into the city of Canton. I'll tell you that right now. Our services are far superior than Canton's, and I want to keep it that way. But if Mr. Baker, just respect to you, you're seeing Canton, and like you're thinking it's that. But it's Plain Township. And that's what, I don't know if you've overlooked that, or just you're so strong in wanting to get this done. It's Canton this, Canton that. That's where I'm getting at. This is plain.
You're controlling your house, okay? And Plain Township is going to benefit from this too. Okay, to the degree that there's taxes that are spent, to the degree that property values go up, Plain Township is going to go up for this, going to go up in value too. So they should benefit. But when I talk about Canton, I talk about it because that's where most people think the Pro Football Hall of Fame is located.
Right.
Sometimes for me, in my job, and hopefully representing you and doing it as well as I know how, it's to talk about the Pro Football Hall of Fame and what this area stands for. And when I say Canton, I'm not just talking about the city limits and what is drawn between your house and somebody else's house. I'm talking about Ashland and North Canton and Alliance in this region. And in some respects, a little bit even of Northeast Ohio. Because what I understand for a lot of people, when I go talk to people and we talk about the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they go, oh, Canton, Ohio. So I'm talking generally. I'm not talking about any specific lines or anything like that. And nothing's meant against Plains Township or anything there or any place else for that matter. Okay? And you're in control of your house. Whatever you say goes. I respect that. And to the extent they park wrong, they will be fined. And it'll become an income producer for Plains Township.
And David, it's you. I know that we have a lot of people that still want to get some more questions here, so I have a gentleman, I'm sorry, I can't right here, because I have another gentleman back here that I'm looking at.
My house is going to be right there behind the hotel, okay? But after you guys get done, this is just their plan, all right? What about everybody else, every restaurant and every other store that wants to have a piece of this, okay? I see them going all the way up to Broad Avenue. This is just the Hall of Fame's plan. You talk about everybody else that wants a piece of this, that wants to come to Canton, just like several people pointed out, there's no parking. There may be one or two underground parking decks, but you're going to need parking. They're going to Broad Avenue when I say have at it.
Yep.
I'm happy.
I know it's kind of...
I work at the employment source. I want to see people get jobs.
Oh.
Bless you guys, man. Come on.
I don't want it.
I don't want to move either. I'm 4 years away from retirement. I don't want to pack up that house. I got Jimi Hendrix's last interview with Rolling Stone up right there somewhere. Okay? I don't want to pack, okay? But this is good for Canton. I'm sorry for a lot of you people that are retired already, and you have beautiful... I am. I don't really want to move out. Well, I understand, but let's call Kissimmee, Georgia, or Kissimmee, Florida, where Walt Disney World is. Talk to those people. I mean, you know, look how that expanded. So let's move on.
Thank you. One of the points you made, a lot of people who you have expressed kind of, I'm sorry I'm not in the area. And, you know, while there's no commitment to buy your house, the Hall of Fame over the last number of years has bought houses just in order to control them for the future. So the folks that have expressed that concern, you know, I'm not sitting here saying that the Hall of Fame is going to buy your house. I'm sitting here saying you should still call Kevin and have the discussion, even if you're outside the area.
David, Stu, thank you. Have a gentleman in the back row here.
Yeah, we're on the east side of Blake that may be affected down near Fulton. What are we supposed to do if ODOT comes in and says we want to take those 3 or 4 houses for an entranceway? Why don't you just keep it on George House the way it is now and leave us alone?
All I can tell you is we don't have a whole lot of control over ODOT. And we have no control over ODOT, to be honest with you. Okay. We will do everything we can.
Suggestion, then let's keep it there.
Yeah, we will do everything we can to work with you. Okay? There's a lady back here too. I'm sorry, sir.
Who owns the property at the Hall of Fame?
The Hall of Fame leases it from the city of Kansas.
Oh, they lease it. Okay. Are you planning on leasing some of the other land, like some of the school land, or some of the parking lot school land?
Yes, potentially.
question back here.
One more question and then.
Mr. Baker, please. Did the Hall of Fame acquire the Harrison Medical Buildings? May I ask you that question, please? Did the Hall of Fame buy the 2 Harrison Medical Buildings over here?
No, I don't think so.
And did the Hall of Fame by any chance make an offer to buy McKinley High School?
To buy Canton High School?
Yes. Did they make an offer?
No.
Thank you, sir.
But we are in negotiations with them to potentially lease some of the property.
Thank you.
Around it.
We have a question back here.
One more question.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to note that phase 1 obviously is the what you're going to do now with the stadium. Okay, so the houses that you have now, what's phase 2, 3, 4, and 5, and what's the timelines? Because, and actually the reason is because we've heard all different timelines. It's been in the paper. So are you going to have the stadium done in 2 years? Are you going to have it done in a year? When will you be going, obviously, towards Blake? And when? How long are we going to have till we have to get out? Or we have the option to get out? Because you know, and I know, if wherever you live, if you had something like this in your backyard, you wouldn't live there. So, and Kelly can't sell her house. We can't sell our houses now because who in their right mind would come in our neighborhood and buy a house? I mean, they'd be crazy. So we're stuck.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the timeline.
Let me share with you. Again, I've only been here 18 months. I apologize for that. But thank you very much for rephrasing your question to have the option to leave, because we're not requiring you to leave.
Right.
But I will tell you, because I did buy property here in Canton, and we looked at, my wife looked at 40 homes. And I can tell you, there's not a whole lot of people buying property out there. You know, property values the last 7 years have dropped substantially. So it's not like if this wasn't happening, that there's going to be all kinds of people wanting to buy your house. The people who sold in this area have sold to us, not a whole lot of other places. And I think all the property that we purchased has been at or a little bit above fair market value. So if we're not doing this, I don't know who's buying your house anyways at a very good price.
Well, I think, excuse me, but I think we have a little different option because now everybody knows, or most people know, that the Hall of Fame is coming closer and closer and closer to our house and to Broad. So you've really stocked the market. I mean, even if we would have had the option, we don't have an option right now to sell. We have to wait until you decide where you're going and when. And that's not really fair.
Yeah, because nobody's going to want to buy my house because I'm on Blake, and I'm going to say, here's a beautiful house, look out your front window and you get to see the back of the hotel. My property value just went to crap. But they did. I mean, nobody's going to want to buy a house where the front window looks at the back of the hotel if I choose to stay. Oh, and for the next 8 years, your whole yard neighborhood's going to get tore up, the road in front of you, and they might not come and take the house because that entranceway is where you're at. So I'm screwed. Unless I'm screwed. I mean, literally, I'm stuck there because nobody's going to want to buy it. And I say to you, what are you going to say? I'll give you a couple dollars here and there. How did that benefit me?
I really...
My family and my children, I can't. I mean, I just got a hotel in my front yard. So I was going to want to buy it. So she said,
I really don't want to get into the philosophical debate because I'm sure I'm not going to change your mind. But actually, the way the world has gone, you know, especially with younger people and the millennials, people want to live near where they work. And you're seeing real estate developments that are totally moving in the direction of putting the residential right next to where the jobs are. And it's a whole different world. And, you know, the world of urban sprawl we had for a lot of years where people just wanted to go out to the suburbs. So I sort of disagree with the basic premise that's being said by a couple of people here. I'm probably not going to convince you, but I just want to give you my perspective of it, that I actually believe when all the jobs this project is going to create for those who do choose to stay in the area around it, your property values are going to go up.
So my property value just doubled. Is that what I could expect? If I come to you and say, look, it's not for me, nothing against you, but some millennial will want it, and it just doubled. Is that what you're going to get?
You know, right now we have real estate people dealing with people who want to sell, to negotiate fair deals, and you know, and everybody, because we cannot force you to sell your house. It'll have to be a deal that you're happy with.
Was there someone else here up front?
More questions? Yes.
I have a gentleman right over here.
I had no intention of speaking. I live in Cleveland. I came down here to advise a friend on selling or not selling. I'm going to give you some wisdom that I believe I have that maybe some people in the room don't. I don't know if it was 2 months ago, I was watching something on television and I saw that the NCAA had created a Hall of Fame on a much higher scale than what they already had. The day I saw that program, and it may have been more than 2 months ago, I said, wow, NFL is going to follow suit. They're going to do something more spectacular at Canton. Here we are. Listening to the gentleman speak, listening to everybody speak, I think if you look at something called Crocker Park on the west side of Cleveland, Legacy Village also on the east side of Cleveland, they have been developments that have done wonders for the community, for shopping, for restaurants. Crime has lessened in some of those areas. Not only do you have hotels, but you have condos. Everybody in this room is going to benefit, in my humble opinion. I've been in real estate ever since I got out of college. I also came down here thinking I might buy some properties. So Debbie, don't leave before you get a chance to talk to me. I honestly am thinking about buying several properties here because I think to address the gentleman over there that was talking about losing, you know, his house and nobody's going to want to buy it. There's a term called added value. You probably aren't going to get double your value for that house, but as the gentleman eloquently spoke, Cleveland, all the surrounding beautiful communities on the east and west side of Cleveland, and Canton, and all the beautiful communities around Canton, Plain Township, properties are not selling. I've been watching a couple of properties in Canton that are in foreclosure just sitting, and trying to go through the banks that I know hold them. So most people here are going to benefit. You're going to benefit by a beautiful community, restaurants, shopping. Hopefully they go and they put in a real classy, something similar to like a YMCA, so people from the community can come in and benefit. I think if you hound them, if you, quote, unionize to some degree so you have a collective voice, maybe get them to do something that they weren't thinking of doing. There's one individual that is going to be, there's one type of individual in this whole scenario that's going to be the real loser. And it's sad it happens in this world, and that's the little old lady or the little old man who's lived in their house for 30 or 40 years and they don't want to sell. And unfortunately, that's the minority, but that is going to be traumatic. It's going to break heartstrings. But you'll be able to sell a house you probably couldn't sell. Whoever buys it and wants to put condos up, they're bringing in added value. That's going to be the person who really benefits, whether it's this gentleman, whether it's me. Again, I didn't want to speak, but I wanted to try to put some of you at ease because I hear some stress and some concerns. I've had relatives that don't understand real estate. They had stresses and concerns when things of a different nature came up, and I had to come in and console them. So everybody in this room, look at this as a positive. It may be a negative for some, but people who couldn't sell a house, and now's the time to buy it. I've bought houses on the east side of Cleveland and $500 through bank foreclosures. There are some tremendous deals out there if you can get good realtors to help you. And I think they're going to pay you market value, and I don't think anyone else is going to pay some of you market value for some of these homes. Some of them are run down. So look at this as an overall benefit. I think this is going to be a beautiful project. NFL is loaded, but the NFL is also a business. Well, trust me, this is the NFL. These gentlemen don't work specifically for the NFL, but the NFL is running this ship and guiding this ship. But I think this is going to be a tremendous community asset for all of you. But I said before, unionize, get a powerful voice, because another thing that gray area needs a buffer. That gray area needs a major buffer. And I think that's the first thing you guys get as a collective voice. Get some kind of buffer so you don't have those parking issues that you're so worried about. That's one of your things that you guys have to have a common voice. But work closely with these gentlemen. I'm impressed by both of these gentlemen. I think they'd be easy to work with, and I think for most of you this is going to be a blessing.
So you keep saying, you guys, you're not going to the community?
Right, this isn't Cleveland and you're not losing your home.
No. But if I was living here, if I was living in this area, I would try.
Can I ask if there are any questions? Hang on, please.
Please raise your hand and we'll answer questions.
Okay. Yeah, just raise your hand, we'll be glad to talk.
Are you going to own the property?
I don't know this gentleman. This gentleman wasn't associated with us. He came here because of someone else, is what he said. Ma'am, you live in the community here, and you asked him to come. Okay, there you go. Okay, so you look for somebody. I'm not sure we're going to convince you here, okay? But there's somebody who we're associated with, and
Are you going to own it or the city?
Can you wait and let people raise their hand, and we'll answer the questions that people raise their hand. Next gentleman.
I have a gentleman back here. There was another gentleman right ahead.
You'll take and buy the property, and you can have a hotel come in and make a deal where they lease the property off of you to build. And you still can have the income off of it. Or you can do the other where you build it yourself and you got an income.
Sir, we'll answer questions. If you're not willing to wait your turn, we're happy to answer everybody's question. If you're not willing to wait your turn, you know, we can't have a civil meeting here.
Yes, sir.
First of all, the gentleman over there that spoke just a little bit ago, he's right. This area of Stark County has been going down and down and down. Okay? I've been in the neighborhood 40 years. Okay, one of the oldest ones in the neighborhood. We need to get Stark County built back up. Property values going down in Stark County. When your kids graduate from college, they leave Stark County to get a good job. They don't stay here in Stark County. That's fact, okay? They do. So we better, help, do what we can. Don't give your homes away, but, help out. And the guy with the parking stuff, the township would never let the streets get jammed up because they're committed for a safety issue for the township. Okay, for fire, police, and ambulance. Well, I think you guys need to go to the trustees and talk to them instead of this man here. When you live in Plain Township, talk to the trustees and get something solved. They don't change the laws here. The trustees will. You voted for them, use them.
Do you have any other questions?
Again, just let me add one thing about, again, to repeat myself about the parking issue. When you develop anywhere in this country, except Houston, there are zoning laws and there are rules. And those rules carefully control the quality of your construction. They control the amount of parking spots you have for every square foot of office space, for every square foot of residential space, for every square foot of each kind of space. And those limits are based upon studies about how much parking is required. So I can't sit here and honestly say there won't be a parking issue because we're doing something as a tourist destination and we can't predict the number of people who will come, but the parking will be designed for for the expected number of people and will comply with all codes, and we anticipate there will not be a parking issue. If this place is wildly successful, we'll have to build more parking decks or bus people off-site like they do at some other tourist attractions, because the community will not let us have a parking issue. I mean, the zoning laws don't allow it, and the rules don't allow it. We just can't run amok on those things if we wanted to, which we don't.
Have anybody else? I know the gentleman here hasn't had that chance yet.
Yeah, I didn't plan on speaking either. I just have a comment from the guy from Cleveland. We live in that gray area, and it's probably not going to touch us. We've been here for some years now, I guess. But I think the most important thing he said, and I think something you need to take into account, is that word he said, buffer zone. Because if I lived on Blake, like this gentleman looking at the back of the hotel, I wouldn't want that either. But, I don't necessarily want you to take my house, but maybe you need to think about going a couple more blocks over to Broad or something. Just open this up if you have to, because if I lived at 21st and Blake,
that's exactly
wow, that's going to be a horrible experience right across the street. Maybe you need to take another couple blocks and make a buffer zone. And I think what he said is really legitimate, but those are developments that came in with condos after things went in. These are private residential homes that have been here for years and years and years. And like Rachel has lived there for years and years. But, I think the most important thing that gentleman said, and I know it's real estate. I've talked to several real estate people, and they tell me the same thing, that nobody will buy houses in this area. A house we had a corner, right around the corner from us, that sat there for 3 years maybe, because nobody will buy it because of the uncertainty of what's going on. But maybe that buffer zone, I'm sitting there the whole time when he said that, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I don't want you to take my house necessarily, but at least I can understand it. But these guys that live on Blake, 21st and Clearview, God bless you. My only other question, I guess, and I don't know, if they take some houses and not others, and I know the township is already involved in this because Kevin knows my background. I know a lot of little things that people don't understand. But the bottom line is what if they vacate a street? They gotta go. Then they don't really have the option of staying there.
But generally, I really can't say I know the Plain Township rules, but we develop on a nationwide basis, and usually you cannot get a street vacated unless you own the properties on both sides of it. So I don't think that we would be able to vacate any street unless we did buy those properties on both sides of the street.
How much property do you need?
Well, in an ideal world, this is it, but it may not be all of this. And what I want to emphasize here, and again, whether it's last week or this week, we want to hear you out, and we want to have other meetings. The point about the buffer and stuff like that, and how that works, that's how this works. People come up with good suggestions and we make it a better project. And this is the beginning of the process. This isn't the end of the process. You come up with a plan and you come up with a vision, then you see if you can sell it to some tenants and you got other people that allow you to get your financing. Then you've got to take it to the city or the township. You got to get approval. When that approval goes in, you'll have the full opportunity to comment on it and go through it. Before we ever pull building permits, there's lots of processes that have to go through. So this is the beginning of the process, not the end of the process. But I would love to say, for this gentleman over here, I don't know him. That young lady invited him to come, but I don't think we can tell you what he just did. Okay? The best predictor of the future is what's happened in the past. And if we don't do something here, what's happened in the past to home values, to the neighborhoods and other stuff, is most likely going to continue. So that's what we're hoping for. We hope for that is an example of other people coming down and wanting to show an interest. That those people might be interested in something beyond that. They might be interested on the other side of Fulton. They might be interested in doing something in downtown Canton. I hope we attract those kind of people because it'll give you that kind of opportunity.
We have passed around a notebook. I think it's in the back there. If you have not signed up with your email and would like to be on that list so we can communicate to you, please do so.
Ida, I have one question in the back here.
You never gave me a timeline.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Somehow we didn't do that.
We know it's an estimate.
So basically, if you look at that plan, the first phase is essentially half the stands, which are highlighted, and probably 3 of those fields. So we could start bringing children in and their families in for tournaments, and that will start this year. The second phase will be the other half of the stadium, right, which is outlined, and we'll start doing a lot of the infrastructure work, for the parking, the underground parking, and start doing the street and the hotel, right? And then after that, basically the Legends Landing piece, which, David, you want to highlight that? Oh, okay, right there. And the likely last phases would be the field house, which is back there. And the Hall of Fame experience, well, actually, I did leave out the one piece, the Center for Excellence with the office building and the medical training and physical fitness facilities would be in the second phase. So that would start next year also. The last phase would be the Hall of Fame experience, which is kind of the amusement parkish part of the project, and likely the field house.
So
that is your question?
So how many years? Okay, we're talking about...
Basically, we're talking of, if everything goes according to plan, a 4 to 5 year plan.
And this will totally be done?
It'll be done.
In just the land that you showed us tonight?
In just the land we showed you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think we've hit most people that have had a question. I think we've hit everybody at least once. Would that be correct? Sure.
The other night, we had a meeting, and there was a question about whether renters were being moved into homes who were going to use to build these things. You spoke a couple minutes ago, and you specifically said, depending on how many renters we can get to build. Can you expand upon that?
Actually, what I was talking about tenants, and the tenants we're talking about are, for instance, the tenants for this office building, the tenants for the Center for Athletic Performance and Safety, the tenants for this retail and restaurants in here. We're not talking about moving tenants into the homes that we purchase.
So you're moving tenants into those buildings?
Yes.
To build those buildings?
Yes.
The way the development industry works is a very expensive project, and you finance it with a combination of debt and equity. And to get the debt, you have to show tenants. So we're in a planning phase, we're in a conception phase, and we're actually in a phase where we're accumulating letters of intent and moving to leases so far very successfully with a series of pretty exciting tenants. When we get those tenants, the project becomes more likely because the financing becomes possible. And that's the process that we're in now. And so far, it's going very well.
Frank asked you earlier who owns this land now, and you said City of Canton.
In terms of the ownership of it, yes, we ground lease it from them.
And so when you say we can't eminent domain their homes, you mean the Pro Football Hall of Fame Corporation. But City of Canton can't.
No, I don't believe they can.
Yes, they can.
Right.
No, the Kelo decision changed that. As long as they're going to make more tax revenue, they can take the land. That's law of the land.
Not in the state of Ohio.
No, that's federal.
No, in the state of Ohio.
They've already done it.
In the state of Ohio, there is.
Let me hopefully address your question. I believe that's the law in Ohio, but even if it wasn't the law in Ohio, we're not going to change the property.
Okay.
We're not
condemn it. All right, whatever.
So Pete, again, I had mentioned that I think anybody that did have a question had that opportunity. Pete, I know you had mentioned about having future, being able to sit down as a group at later times.
We'll continue to have these community meetings as the project evolves. We appreciate, first of all, everybody inviting us. One more question? Right here, ma'am.
Is it true that you're going to rent these homes that you bought to contractors?
No, I think that's the question he was asking, but no.
There's a house across the street
Now,
from
we
that
do,
Jim
we
bought,
have,
and
we
I was
have,
told contractors were going to live in it.
no, we don't need the home for contractors. We have some of the homes we purchased, and I'm talking about before I was here. Some of the homes that were purchased that we didn't feel were safe, or we didn't feel were an attractive complement to the neighborhood you already have, we actually demolished or took down.
Okay, that's fine.
Some of those homes that we purchased are still pretty nice homes.
Yes.
And until we know we need them, we might rent them out to somebody.
Yeah, you bought the one across the street from me, and she did a lot of remodeling in it. But she was going to move anyhow.
Yeah, so we're trying to work with everybody. And in the interim, if we're not going to use the property until that time comes, we're probably going to rent them out. I know we have a couple employees here that I believe are living in them, that are young college students that need a place to live.
Yeah, if I decide to stay there, which I probably won't, because I don't want that stuff built around me and I'm going to live right in the middle of it.
We're happy to work. We're happy to work with everyone.
And there's a woman standing in the back with, you can raise your hand, just if you have not signed up and would like to, we will continue to communicate to you through email and invite you to future meetings.
And also, I'm going to be standing over near this wall, so if you do want to come over, pick up my card if you didn't copy my number from up there. But really, thanks again. David, student?
Mr. Baker, question about that lady. It is R1, one family, so you can't have somebody else, Mr. Jones and Mr. Smith, living. It's two different families. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Hey, listen, we want to be good neighbors with you. This is the beginning of the process, not the end of the process. So let's keep in communication. You've got Kevin's number, and we want to communicate with him, okay?
How are you going to advertise future meetings so we know?
Get your name on that email list.
Is it going to be in the paper or also or anything like that?
Put something in the paper.
And we will probably have to, and again, that's a little bit of the problem in getting to you guys early. With all due respect to your question right here, sir, we don't have your email. We don't have your phone number. At least I don't. So, but to the extent you can, we would encourage you to help get your neighbors. We need your help in that communication. Okay? Thank you so much for coming.
Technique that's used to gain consensus, basically to give the illusion of public support for anything. And because they have to get public to buy into all this stuff, they have to pretend that everybody wants it. You're the only one that doesn't want this. You're the one that's crazy.
You're weird.
Right. So when they have meetings, and they have a lot of them, public workshops, visioning, whatever, on any number of topics, they've already got the conclusion. They already know what they want. They want stack and pack housing, mass transit. They just want you to think that's what you want. And so they get a bunch of people, and they usually have shills in the rooms with you, facilitators. They have, of course, activists that are there. They have the developers that are there. They have all the people that are going to, of course, benefit by all of this.
Sure.
And they are all there, and they're all voting. So, it's stacked against you. If you speak out, you are ridiculed, you are marginalized, you are, again, in real life, we're being Delphi'd every day in California. It's called political correctness, and it's called shut them up. It's all about shutting you down. It's all about calling you a racist. It's all about calling you whatever, intolerant. You're intolerant because you don't want your 5-year-old to learn about, you know, someone's lifestyle, which, you know, I don't care what people do. I just don't want my 5-year-old to have to deal with that at 5. You know what I mean?
Right.
They should be learning to read and write. You know, I can help fill in the blanks and stuff like that later on. But it's all part of that bigger agenda. And the way they try to shut us down. And they've done a very good job of that in California for a long time. I mean, conservatives wouldn't even, I'm conservative. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it got to the point where you couldn't talk about politics. They don't want us talking about politics. They don't want us talking about anything that actually means something.
Right.
Because then we might figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the reasons they've been able to steamroll us is by using this technique. And so, you know, but it's gotten to the point where I'm not going to be silent anymore. You know,
Good.
Again, rip the Band-Aid off. Start talking about it. If somebody doesn't want to talk about it, too bad. You know what? They don't have to talk about it. They don't want to listen to it, too bad. To reverse the Delphi technique is what I do. Okay? What are you, racist? And then laugh. You know, because it really is a stupid thing. You know, how many times can you play the racist card? It doesn't mean it's just so ridiculous now. Do not buy into it. Do not feel bad. You know, I don't care if you're Catholic and raised on guilt. That's how I was. Get over it.
Sure.
You know, we are trying to save our country here for our kids.
Right.
And we need to speak up and speak out and do it often.
So if you're considered rude, too bad.
Well, you know what? Yeah, but, you know, be assertive. It's called being assertive.
Yeah.
See, they want to tell you it's rude because
Right.
you're not saying what
Right.
they want to hear. So when you speak up, and, you know, I went to one of their meetings and said, excuse me, you know, can you define open space? Because they said, well, you know, one of their questions was that in the Delphi technique, they wanted us to rank, you know, what our values were, how we felt about conserving open space. Is that important to us or not important to us? And I said, excuse me, what do you mean by open space? Is that government space? Is that, what is that? You know, oh, well, it's whatever you want it to be. It's any space that is not developed, currently developed. And I said, well, that open space is somebody's private property. You know, it's not just open space. I mean, if you're talking about somebody's government property, then that's fine. Do whatever you want with it. Conserve it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm all for that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But when you're talking about telling someone they can't build on their private property because we don't think they should, because it should be open to everybody, we don't have a right to do that. And so they tried to shut me down. And they tried to, one person told me I was a racist. And so, but the point is that, you know what, it's like, listen, you know what, one of the things that distinguishes America from other countries is the fact that we do own private property.
That's right.
That we can accumulate wealth.
Yeah.
That we can, you know, that was one of the things that we could do. Other countries, they don't buy property. They have to rent it. They lease it from the government.
Right.
It's not their property. So, you know, for us to just say, yeah, we don't want that guy to build on his ridgeline, you know, that he owns. That's wrong. We should not be saying that. So you need to really think about that. But you need to speak out. You need to speak out for your neighbors. You need to protect your neighbor's private property as if it were your own.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, when they come for your property, nobody's going to protect
That's right.
you.
That's right. Now is our window of opportunity.
Which is why I went to the supervisors meeting and spoke out for the people of El Sobrante who didn't know what was happening to them. They don't know. Yeah. And, you know, so for those of us that are awake, we need to double our efforts. You know, we need to double our efforts. We need to speak out, and we need to speak out often. And the thing, they fear that. Oh my gosh, you know, they haven't been challenged, especially in California, for so long, that it's amazing how good it feels to stand up for yourself. And it's not being rude. It is not being rude. What they are doing is rude. What they are doing is wrong. And that is exactly what we need to do. We need to say, you know what, I am right, and I'm going to speak out about it, and what they are doing is wrong. And when you start pointing it out, pointing the finger back at them, they start running. And
That's great.
Yeah.
Great.
And they don't, they're not as tough as they think. When you start actually standing up and using your voice and it doesn't have to be screaming, it doesn't have to be that, it just has to be assertive, then they actually back down.
It's typical of a bully.
It totally is.
They're all blustery and mean, and
that's right.
And
when you get in their face and you actually call them on it,
yeah,
they back down.
Yeah,
and that's what
good.
we have here. Is we have someone who's been allowed to bully us as a community, as a Californians, who's been able to bully us because we wanted to go along to get along, and we didn't want to make waves. Well, too late and too bad, because you know what? This is what we got. And we're guilty of that, but we have a voice now, and we need to use it. And you know, however that is for you, if that's writing a letter, if that's whatever it is, editorials, you know, get your thoughts down on paper. If you don't want to speak about it, get your thoughts down on paper. Send it into your local magazine. You'd be surprised at how many people read this stuff online, you know, and don't know about it. They don't know what's really happening. They know something's wrong. They feel the same way. They just don't have a name for it. You know, there's people that own property, and that liberals, Democrats, whatever. You know, there's people that are losing their property and they don't know why.
Mm.
And so it's an issue we can all get behind.
think of it now, but he was talking about the Delphi technique. And I looked online and read a little bit about that. And I remember them doing similar techniques in school where it's group thinking and they try to break you down where if you have an idea different than the group, then they try to use that as against you, as that you have the wrong idea. I was just wondering if you could talk about that.
Yes, the Delphi technique has been used for many, many years. It came out of the same institutions as the human potential movement, they called it. And the whole idea was they understood that a dynamic type leader could pretty well hypnotize an audience, especially if the people were already true believers. That's why they come to learn powers, etc., the inner powers and all the rest of it. But they also thought we could use this for persuasion purposes on councils, for instance, at council meetings where the public are invited in to listen in. And for the big changes that they wanted to do with the world, even right down to taking their water supplies from them, they would send in these particular characters that were taught in the Delphi technique, and they would set the stage, so to speak, so that the public who would come in, who would eventually have to give their consent for any of this to proceed, any projects to do with taking over your water supply, etc., they put plants in the audience. And what they do is they quickly are able to suss out those in the audience as well, who are the people pleasers, the ones who would bring the apples to the teachers if they were still back in school. And they would make eye contact with those ones. Therefore, if anybody stood up at the conference and asked a serious question that the man didn't want to be asked, or it was too hot on the topic, too truthful as to how the public would suffer if a particular bill or whatever was passed, you would get the people pleaser, to stand up and shout down at that particular talker. So it's a psychological process that's taught. And the whole idea, again, is to bring everyone to consensus by using simple Plato-type dialogue techniques where they'll lead you into a form of logic. They'll say, we all agree that gravity keeps you on the ground, and you'll say, yeah. If you jump off the ground, you'll come back down, yeah. And step by step, they'll take you along the topic if they want to take the water supply from you. And at first it will be logical. No one wants a poisoned water supply. That's correct. They'd all agree. And little by little, he'll take you in 180 degrees. And when the few in the audience who are not under the hypnotic spell of consensus, because people in groups all tend to want to agree with each other, but there's always the few who retain their individuality and can still think. When one person stands up and points out the obvious, the fact that they're going to be robbed of their rights, and they'll pay a fortune for this new installation to be brought in or whatever, the people pleasers then stand up together and shout down that, they'll say, quiet, you're disturbing the talk, you're disturbing and that's how it works. It's pure psychology, an old psychological technique, and these professionals are sent across the country. They're flown in to get their way. It's generally for continental-wide movements. For instance, they did that with the watershed bills that they wanted passed, where they could say that everywhere in the planet was a potential watershed, and that's to take all your rights of land away from you. But it was never presented to the public in such a straightforward fashion. They used the Delphi technique to make it happen. And ultimately, the people will give their own consent to their own demise. They will lose everything through consensus building.
And it's extremely effective on most
Very
individuals.
effective. Yeah. Very more so today, because for the last 15 years, sometimes 20 years in different states and different places, they've been using it in school through groupthink, where they all sit in circles, and before anyone can leave the group or the circle, they must come to a consensus on everything. If one particular individual has a different opinion from the group or the mob, he's ostracized, and he's sent to Coventry, so to speak, until he realizes the errors of his ways and comes back and agrees with the rest of them. So they've already been conditioned to consensus.
Very interesting. Well, thank you, Mr. Watt.
Thanks for calling. Yeah, we're run by psychology and psychiatry and science, and we are well understood because we're the most studied species on the planet. Now we've got Jim from Buffalo, New York on the phone. You there, Jim?
Yes, sir. Yeah? How are you?
Not so bad. Go ahead.
I've just been listening to your show. Great as always. You mentioned before, although you said it in a different context, about people nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced that, it seems to me that nobody cares about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And when this kind of news, like you were telling, when you try to put forth this info to people, people look at you like you have three heads.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess if they didn't hear it on CNN or Fox News, it's not true.
Yes.
And this goes, I guess it kind of blends right into what you were just saying about this Delphi technique. If people are being indoctrinated to think that way, then they're not going to think outside the box ever.
Yes.
It's a sad state of affairs.
It is. However, you go back into the books again and you'll find that many of the big players who understood and set up the think tanks that would eventually implement a lot of this agenda, like Lord Bertrand Russell, they stated in their own books that they would create a situation, a mental state of apathy amongst the general population, and they went into it in some detail as to how they'd bring this about. And the whole idea was through constant repetition of daily news with little blurbs coming from government agencies that people would psychologically begin to accept they were inferior, their lives were being controlled, they'd accept it, and that they didn't have rights, etc. All the thinking was done by their betters above them, these special people, and that's happened. You have a state of apathy where people feel that everything is out of their control anymore. And plus, with the wars on the family, which were very real wars, they were scientifically brought in to play and promulgated through magazines and talk shows and so on until you have a dysfunctional system. People are in an apathetic state. And when they're all divided and conquered, it's much easier to steamroll ahead with this scientific-type dictatorship that they plan to ultimately admit is being used on the public.
Right, and the mainstream media and advertising agencies do this to us every minute of every day.
Yes. Again, Bertrand Russell in the 1920s and again in the 50s reiterated that very point. He says we must bring the experts in psychological manipulation, he says Madison Avenue and the others, in to work with us because they understand how to motivate the public and make them do things they would otherwise not do.
Yep, and this is why we have a nation of sheep.
Yes.